The Lanterns of Yao Village. Part 1. The night I arrived at Yao Village. It was a fog-choked evening when my horse stumbled upon the broken road leading into Yao Village, a forgotten settlement deep within the misty mountains of southern China. My name is Liang Jun, a scholar from Nanchang. I had been traveling towards Suzhou, carrying manuscripts and ink scrolls for a provincial magistrate, when a violent storm tore open the heavens. The rain fell like iron needles. Wind screamed through the bamboo, and the road split beneath my feet. My horse bolted. I wandered for hours through the mountain mist, soaked to the bone, until I saw a faint glow, a row of red lanterns, swaying gently as though alive. They hung along a crooked bridge crossing a black, whispering river. The bridge moaned under my weight, and as I stepped across, the lanterns flickered, each with a bluish flame at its heart. I should have turned back, but the thought of dying in the cold drove me forward. At the far end of the bridge, a figure emerged. An old man in ragged robes, his skin gray, his eyes milk white as if carved from frost. He stared at me with a stillness that made my blood curdle. "You shouldn't be here after sunset," he rasped. "The bride and groom will walk tonight." I tried to smile, thinking him mad, but when I looked down, I saw his bare feet. They left no imprint on the wet ground. And then, without a sound, he was gone. Part 2. The house of the couple. I followed the lanterns up a narrow path. The storm had quieted, but the silence that replaced it was heavier, unnatural. Even the crickets refused to sing. At the top of the hill stood a decaying manor. The gate was decorated with 2 faded red scrolls. Eternal Union. They read, the ink turned brown like old blood. I pushed the door open. It groaned as though protesting. Inside, the air smelled of rotted incense and metal. The main hall was dim, lit by 2 lotus-shaped lanterns. Between them stood a wedding altar draped in cobwebs. On it were 2 portraits, a young man and woman in brilliant wedding robes, their faces hauntingly real. As I studied them, a sound came from behind the curtain, a woman humming an old bridal song. Red silk binds us, though the flesh has rotted. The vows we spoke still breathe in darkness. The melody was soft, almost beautiful, until it cracked into a whisper too human, too close. I turned sharply. No one was there. Only a bridal veil lay crumpled on the floor. Beneath it, a wet footprint, small and delicate, shimmered faintly in the candlelight. I should have fled, yet curiosity pulled at me like a hook. I told myself I sought truth, but it was something deeper, an unseen pull, drawing me further into that cursed house. Part 3. The Bride in the Mirror. In one of the inner chambers stood an enormous bronze mirror, taller than a man. Its surface glimmered faintly despite the darkness. When I looked into it, my reflection began to waver, as though I were peering through water. And then, the image changed. The mirror revealed a bridal chamber, bright, alive, untouched by decay. Silk curtains rippled, red candles burned steady, and before a carved table sat the same couple from the portraits. They were smiling, serene, but the bride turned her head toward me. Her skin was pale, her lips bruised purple, her eyes hollow but burning with grief. She whispered, though her mouth did not move, "You've come to witness what they did to us." The image flickered, and suddenly the scene twisted into horror. The villagers, holding torches and ropes, burst into the chamber. The groom, Shen Wei, fought to protect his bride, Lian Hua, crying that they had done no wrong. But the mob accused them of binding souls within lanterns, of stealing life from the dead to prolong their love. The couple was dragged to the courtyard. I saw them buried alive beneath their own altar, hands still clasped, faces pressed together as the earth swallowed their screams. Then the vision ended. The candle beside me sputtered and died. A cold touch brushed my cheek, soft as silk, yet colder than death. "Find the altar," a woman's whisper breathed beside my ear. "Free us, before the lanterns go out. The mirror shattered with a shriek. From the cracks oozed a black mist that crept toward the hall, whispering my name. Part 4. The Lantern Ritual. I ran through corridors that twisted into shapes that made no sense. When I burst into the courtyard, everything had changed. The village was alive again. Lanterns blazed, drums thundered, laughter echoed through the night. But everyone was wrong. Too pale, too still, moving in jerks like puppets. Before me, Shunwei stood tall in crimson robes, his eyes full of love and dread. Beside him, Lian Hua glowed like moonlight, her veil fluttering though there was no wind. Around them, the villagers' faces twisted into masks of hatred. "They consort with the dead," an elder cried. They would trade their souls for eternal love. The villagers raised their torches. The flames turned blue. The lanterns overhead burst open, releasing swarms of ghostly fireflies, souls bound within their paper walls. The lights poured into the villagers, twisting their bodies into monstrous shapes, mouths stretching, eyes melting, flesh rippling as screams filled the air. I watched, paralyzed, as Shunwei and Lian Hua were dragged back to the altar. Their fingers entwined, even as dirt rained upon them. Her veil fell, drifting through the smoke. I reached out to grab it, and the world went black. When I awoke, I was kneeling before that same altar. The room was silent again, rotted and old. The portraits above it had turned into skulls. But from somewhere deep below, I heard that same voice. "Light the lanterns once more. Let us finish the vow." Part 5. The Bride's Return. I don't know what madness guided me. I took the 2 lotus lanterns from the altar and lit them. Their flames burned blue, then crimson. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of burnt silk and soil. The ground shuddered. From beneath the altar rose 2 forms, Shunwei and Lian Hua, wrapped in wedding robes, faces pale, eyes black as the void. At first they looked grateful, human. Lian Hua reached out, her hand trembling. "You freed us," she whispered. "Now, the vow must be completed." Her voice grew sharper, echoing from all directions. Shunwei stepped forward, his lips curling into a smile that wasn't human. "Now we may wed in your flesh." I screamed as spectral tendrils burst from their sleeves, wrapping around my arms and neck. I felt my heartbeat slow, my breath freeze, my mind drowning in cold. Their faces drew closer until I could smell the grave upon their skin. Then darkness consumed everything. I awoke standing before the mirror again, but I was no longer myself. I wore the groom's crimson robes, and my reflection smiled back at me with someone else's eyes. Lian Hua stood beside me, her hand on mine, her lips brushing my ear. "Till death," she whispered, and beyond. The lanterns around us flickered and dimmed. As the final flame died, the world dissolved into endless night. Epilogue. The lanterns still burn. They say that travelers passing near the old mountain road sometimes see 2 red lanterns glowing faintly through the mist. Those who follow their light never return. Villagers whisper that a woman's voice can be heard singing an ancient wedding song, her tone both mournful and tender. Some swear they hear a man's laughter answering her from the darkness. I cannot tell you whether I am dead or alive. Perhaps my body roams those hills even now, lantern in hand, waiting for the next lost soul to wander in. If you ever find yourself in the mountains near Yao Village, and the fog grows too thick to see your feet, if you glimpse 2 red lanterns swaying in the wind, do not follow, for the bride and groom still walk at night, hand in hand, their vow unbroken, their love undying. And if you listen closely, you may hear me among them.